Dr. Ibukun Babarinde teaches at the Business School of the University of Central Lancashire, and he teaches political economy, trade union studies, human resource management, work employment, and society. Did you japa?
Edmund. I would not call it Japa because it depends on how you define Japa. Of course, your listeners may remember, back in the days at Premier Hill, then when we used to, read poems together on Sunday evenings. If you remember then.
Yeah.
So, but suddenly, Ibukun Babarinde disappeared from the scene. I would not say I Japa because the way I define Japa is when you carry your bag and you left without adequate planning, without a very good process of thought to, okay, why am I going? Why do I want to go now? Where am I going? How will things, pan out? And when am I coming back? Right. So if you took time to address all these, then it becomes something intentional, not something that you did as a reaction. So the people that japa, I would say it's more reactionary than intentional. And I think we know japa when we see japa. So I didn't japa. However, if we then ask the question, why are people japaing? Okay, and did I have a sense of vulnerability that most people have today? Of course, yes. I left University of Ibadan at very advanced age. I didn't get into UI until I was 23, 24. Many people didn't know at the time. And after you stack 5 years upon on that, and then I was going to graduate from the university. Of course, this is an open secret. I graduated with a 2.2 from UI. And at that point in time, when you saw job advert, you're doomed. Because they were not looking for anyone that was older than 25. They were not looking for anyone that didn't have a 2.1 and above. So I began to think seriously that I must have an alternative to this. Now, I did try. I got into job here. I will say I was lucky to eventually defy all the odds and got something that was meaningful. But again, that sense of something is not right was always looming at the back of your mind, and you want to have that clarity. You want to have some assurance about the future, and some of that may mean that you had to leave the country at that point in time. So certainly, I did feel a sense of being vulnerable at the point that I left, but I wasn't desperate. And desperacy or being desperate is another thing that defines the current Japa trend.
So what was your picture of the UK before you left?
I've never been to the UK. That was my first time.
Well, you have read about it.
Yeah, I have read about the UK. I've seen UK in the movies. I've only seen winter in movies. I've only seen snow in movies. But the picture I had was a land that was flowing with milk and honey. And when I got to the UK, I nearly slipped into depression.
Really?
Because everything I had expected wasn't just there.
Tell me more.
Okay, people are not essentially rich. Okay, there are homeless people on the streets of London, several cities across that country. There are people living in poverty. Well, poor poverty, abject poverty, I wanted to say. Within that, there are children that are going to bed without food in the UK. There are children that are going to school with empty food flask, just to make the child feel good to leave the home, but that food flask has nothing in it. There are people that are very homeless, being accommodated in temporary shelters and all of that. There are people queuing up for foods in the kitchen and food shelters. So when I saw that, it was like I was recovering from a dream because I was shocked to see that. I was shocked to see crime, knife crime on the street of London as well. So it wasn't what I wanted in the end, or what I thought I was going into in the end, and that sense of shock, sense of disappointment, nearly affected me emotionally.
How were you able to survive it?
I was able to survive because I was in the company of my lovely wife. So we did support ourselves. We were studying for our master's degree in the same university at the same time. So that meant that some companionship was there. But also before I left the country, I spoke with a lot of people, a lot of friends already over there. So I knew I sort of had some insight on how, for example, how much was minimum wage. So how many hours could you work, how much could that add up to in a week, and what was going to be the cost of living, and whether I was going to survive or not. So all those information really kind of helped me to say, well, this is the worst case scenario, then I'll be able to wade through it. And also I was now working and going to school with the mind of making the money for my tuition from the student job that I was doing. And I think this is one of the areas that the current Japa people, miss it, because there's no way you can make enough on working on 20 hours a week. So I knew that before I left the country, and that means the financial arrangement that I had to put in place must be such that will cover the length of my studies, the period where I had a legal restriction on how much student work I could do. So that meant I could survive that period. And when the restrictions were lifted, then I was able then to work unlimited, sometimes 72 hours a week, to be able to then recover some of the funds and live a meaningful life.
You worked yourself out.
Yeah, I did. I would say for the first 8 months after I finished my master's, it was just work, and work. And of course, I had the support of my wife. I should state that every now and then. But together, we were able to then revisit the financial plan I put in place. The Alaja Saku money, the cooperative money, the bank of mom and dad, that really set the move up. And again, this marked a huge difference between Japa and what I did.
What was schooling like?
Yes, it was different. And what I say to people is that if you are average student in Nigeria, you will excel abroad, because we had a whole lot of stress that we go through here in Nigeria. Of course, studying without electricity, it became like I was trying to recall my experience in UI during exams. Sometimes it felt like some people intentionally went to the electric and took it off during the exam period and it became more difficult to study in extreme heat, in darkness. Some people reading with candle or with no light. I thought it was a very difficult. I could remember my days in the Mellanby Hall reading room then. So if you could survive all of that, you could survive studying in the UK. In fact, you will come out in flying colors. Now that I see it as an academic within the system, and I see the kind of support that the universities put in place for you, so the expectation is that you will pass from your day one, because it's quite different. However, to whom much is given, much more is expected. So if we give you all the materials, we take the time to teach you, the university makes abundant library resources available to you, then what we expect, or what the tutor expects from you, is not a lazy or a lousy essay. So you need to do the work. But the way the assessments are set up are quite clear, to make it easy for you to know what is being expected of you. Every module set out its learning objective from the beginning, from the first lectures, and this is what I say to students. When you are going to resume your lectures, make sure you arrive on time. Don't miss the first lectures, because that is where the tutor will tell you that, look, these are the learning objectives of these modules, this is how this module will be assessed, and these are the things that we want to see when you write your essays. So all those form a kind of mental resource for you to fall back to when you are ready to turn in your assessment. Again, there's a lot of details, quality response that the tutors expect from you, but the resources would have been given.
And you have many Nigerians trooping in. Do you meet Nigerians?
Oh yes, of course. It's my it's my usual practice to look at the class list before I go to every of my first class. Now as a lecturer, to just see the names and see how many of the Nigerian names I might see. Sometimes I see some names, sometimes I don't. Sometimes I get to the class and I see people, sometimes I don't. So the answer is that, of course, there are also Nigerian students. I've taught Nigerian students, let me just put it that way.
Generally, how are Nigerians coping in the streets of UK?
Well, if you look at the set before Japa, because we have to say we have to say that they seem to be calmer. They seem to be ready to listen, to learn the ropes. But the current Japa trend, they come kind of prepared for war. So when they hit the ground, you say, well, guys, slow down. But sometimes it becomes trouble, even in trying to advise, to say, look, you don't do that, you don't say that, you don't go there, you don't do that. So that difference is remarkable. People could tell by the way you carry yourself whether you are a Japa edition or the editions before Japa.
But are some Nigerians going through hard times?
Oh yes, many are going through a lot of hard times. For example, you are schooling in Newcastle and you are living in London. And if you have done your preparation, you will know. I say to people that don't pick schools where you don't know anybody. The people that you know are the ones that will look for your accommodation before you arrive, okay? But you arrive to University of Middle England and you know nobody there, and all the money you came with, you spend them on hotel accommodations, and then you finish the money in within a week or two of your arrival. So people then set on this part of difficult experience.
Do people sleep on the street?
Yeah, I've seen Nigerian students. I've seen Nigerian students that sleep in train stations. I've heard of Nigerians that, even the Japa edition, if I should use that word, that live in very extreme circumstances. Some of them are being supported by churches and religious organizations. Well, let me say by Nigerian churches and Nigerian Muslim communities, wherever they found them. So people are living in very difficult situations. People come with children that couldn't go to school because they arrive at the point in time where all the school positions have been taken up, and the council never had an idea that you are bringing 5 children into town. Now imagine if let's say 1,000 international students bring 2 children each per unit. So you suddenly, this council has a responsibility to provide 2,000 additional 2,000 school positions for these 2 kids. So that also led to some difficulties. Some children dependent of international students who have to stay at home without school or without schooling for a term even. So these are difficult situations. And then if you have minor, you can't leave them at home on their own. So that means if you came in with your spouse then assumed child care responsibility, then you student, you have to go to university to do your studies, because if you do not go, the university has the responsibility to report you to the Home Office for abandoning or for breaching your visa conditions. So that itself become additional source of pressure for the new arrivals.
Wow. Wow. How do we help them?
We help them by saying to them, maybe don't go now. Okay. Maybe Japada. Okay. Japada means return home. Okay. Maybe send the kids back home. Maybe send part of your family back home. Maybe suspend your studies and come back at the time that your kids do not no longer require.
They've sold everything here before they left.
Okay, maybe part of the advice is that don't sell things. Okay, maybe structure the financing of this your Japa thing in a different way. I don't know. I can't give specific examples, but these are different kind of advice I will give to people to help them to say before you get into trouble, listen. Okay, you could do a simple thing as kind of layering or staggering the arrival. So maybe you go first. Okay, maybe husband and wife go first, and then leave the children for grandparents to look after them. Maybe for 3 months, or maybe for 6 months until you find your footing, until your spouse find a job. So these are things we can do. I am a course director, and part of what I do as part of my job is to issue pre-arrival communication to my students to say, look, if you're coming to this university to do this program, these are the things that you must do now, and these are the things that you must not do. Because if you do, then it will impact on your ability to study, and then you will struggle. And also, if you are at advanced stage of pregnancy, my advice is that do not Japa now, or do not go to start your studies now. Let the baby come first, and because this is a different direction of discussion in terms of what is happening in the UK. But the reality is that there's a lot of stress on the medical facilities of the country. Then you come with huge medical attention or medical needs, and then you can't do that, and sadly we have had some mortality, some fatality, I would say. People that arrived and then within weeks of their arriving passing on.
So the NHS system is not that efficient?
The NHS system is being overstretched. Okay, on the one hand by the cut in the budget of the NHS by the central government. On the other hand, as some politicians will say, that we can allow the population of the south of the size of the city of Southampton to be added to the UK every year, and you expect the system not to crack.
The system is cracking.
The system is cracking. Sometimes it feels like it's sinking.
The UK?
Well, not only the UK, but Western economies, as you would know, even China struggled on the edge of recession. The European bloc also, they're struggling. America, everywhere. There's a lot of financial instability around the world. So governments there were looking for opportunities to cut, and sometimes they make cuts to NHS or health or education budgets. So one of the ways of managing this is to then steady immigration to manage the number of people that arrive, not to overload or overburden the system.
So that is why they are being stricter now with visa issuance?
Yes, I would say yes. That's one of the reasons why, of course, we have a general election looming, and immigration is always in the forefront of all the election debate. But that's one of the reasons. Certainly in response to the number of arrivals contributed to by the dependents of the student, and that was why they first asked the dependent visas for students. Except you are on a research degree, you are not allowed to bring in family anymore.
That's not good news for Nigerians.
Well,
or is it?
Again, yeah, there are people, certainly a set of people that is not good news for, because it will kind of would take away their opportunity to have inclusive education. For example, the women folks often have more responsible for childcare within family than the male folks, and when you do not allow them to come in with their family, you may essentially be stopping them from pursuing even when they can afford it, and that's where the problem then lies. Some of them can actually comfortably bring in their family, but this policy now says no, you can't do that. So we think it will exclude women more than men, so it is not good. But for Nigerians, I wouldn't say not good for Nigerians, but for Japa syndrome or for Japa scheme, it's certainly not a good news.